one, let's go. Good morning, Misfits. We have an awesome guest coming in today. I'm going to be joined by the leader of the Qatari National Democrat Party. Now, we had scheduled this interview before I saw Erin Milan's interview, and I've been on Erin Milan. She's great. She did a great job, and that actually helped me kind of reframe some questions because I don't know about you, but I never heard of the Qatari National Democrat Party before. Didn't know it was a thing. Didn't know there was an opposition leader. I've spoken previously with the opposition leader to the King of Jordan. So this is going to be a nice little interview as well. I'm very interested in finding out more about these intricacies of Middle Eastern politics because, as many of you know, I am very much against the Islamification of the West, and I think that there needs to be a deeper conversation so that I can be more informed and you can be more informed. So without further ado, let's bring on Khalid. Khalid, sir, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Great.
I'm glad to be here today.
Thank you so much. I saw you on Erin. You did a great job. And right off the bat, I just wanted to know, what is the Qatari National Democrat Party?
Right. Qatar National Democratic Party is a party that started after the Qatar Youth Movement, which I started in Qatar. It was in 2010, fighting some corruption inside the financial system in Qatar. Then in 2014, after the collapse of the Muslim Brotherhood system in Egypt, I formed the Qatar Youth Movement in Egypt, 2014. And then in 2015, I've decided to create the Qatar National Democratic Party, where there is a lot of Qataris from the country and outside who lives in exile that joined the party. We've been trying very hard to be part of the political system in Qatar. We've been promised 2013 publicly that there will be an acceptance of a political party like Qatar National Democratic Party. But what happened after that was just promises until 2021, where the first election happened in Qatar. But when our people started to win the election in Qatar, 2024, the Emir of Qatar canceled the whole democracy. So Qatar become again an absolute monarchy system run by one man who is being radically manipulated by Islamist groups like the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, so you actually, I think you might have answered my next question, because my next question was going to be, is the party recognized in Qatar? You mentioned there was an election that the QNDP was a part of. It was recognized, or was it not?
Not recognized as a party, but there was a lot of our members who participated. Unfortunately, after that, a lot of them now in prison in Qatar, and most of the people in exile, because the Qatari government, they are promoting the idea to the Qatari locals that we don't need an election. We just need an appointed member of parliament by the king, because he know that he cannot make decisions alone once the constitution decide. So the only issue we're facing in Qatar as well now is that the constitutional monarchy system, which they are promoting in the West. For example, if you go to the United States establishment, they actually referring to Qatar as a constitutional monarchy system. It's an absolute monarchy system run by one man. He's the only man who decide the future of the nation, and he decided to be pro Al-Qaeda. He decided to be pro Hamas. He decided to fund all the Muslim brotherhoods in America and around the world.
And you're talking about the Al Thani.
Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani.
Yeah.
Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, as I've been saying a lot, he's just, we call him as the king boy, as the boy king of the state of Qatar. He's just always trying to be worshipped. The Qatari people always saying some funny things about him, that he is the man who's hiding under his mother's skirt. Sorry to say that, but that's what the people in Qatar actually saying about him.
Sure, sure. And so what is the political system right now in place in Qatar? Like how do they have elections? You said it's an absolute monarchy. Do they have elections? How is he how would you challenge him if you were to run as his opposition?
So Tamim bin Hamad cancelled every single possible way for an opposition party to exist in Qatar. It's a crime against the constitution which he created to have political parties like our party in Qatar. The only issue we're facing, even people from the regime, like the former Minister of Justice in Qatar, can you believe he cannot travel from Doha because he criticized a certain thing in the constitution of Qatar? So that says basically the power should be with one man, and this man should decide the future of the nation, and this man should say if the whole country should be Hamas supporters, or should be anti-Israel, or should be anti the principle of the United States of America.
Yeah.
As you are aware, yes, as you are aware, in the sorry.
No, no, no. I was going to say I've been lately trying to define to my audience what Western values are and how they're in conflict with Islam or some of these Islamic regimes, not necessarily Muslims, but the the anti-Israel, anti-West, anti-democracy seems to be a theme running in a lot of these nations, and it sounds to me like you are rejecting that. And I did want to follow up real quick on that question though. What is the actual system in place right now in Qatar for their elections? Like what is the system there? Do they have elections? Can he be challenged by anybody, even if he's not recognizing you?
There is no election in Qatar.
Okay.
There is an appointed member of parliament now, and there is an appointed ministers, appointed prime minister, appointed citizens that abolishing His Royal Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. And so do you have support in Qatar for the QNDP? How do you measure that? What would you say? Because you said that earlier that you had a lot of support.
We do have a lot of support from within the country of Qatar. There is a lot of people who have another opinion. As you are aware, even you and your neighbor, you will always have a disagreement, and you always have different thoughts. The only issue they're facing in Qatar, that you are not allowed to criticize the King of Qatar or the boy King of Qatar, Tamim bin Hamad. You cannot say anything. You cannot even criticize his financial support to Hamas. You cannot criticize, for example, the existence of Osama bin Laden's sons in Qatar, the man who slaughtered 3,000 Americans,
Hmm.
and he pretend to be the friend of the American people. And there is a lot of the anti-United States principles that actually lives in Qatar and promoting violence against the United States of America. Something most of the people are not aware of. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of the 9/11, he actually lived in Qatar. The Minister of Interior of Qatar helped him to hide in his own farm from the Americans. And this sort of people you're talking about, it's not been from today or yesterday. It's been for a very long time. And every time people start to criticize, the only way they sort it out, they have a saying. Tamim bin Hamad always have a saying: "Let's bottle them." Bottle them means buy them, put money in their mouth, and shut them out. I mean, someone like Tucker Carlson, for example, coming to Qatar and proudly saying, even if it was a joke, "I want to buy a house in Qatar." What you'd like to have? You want to buy a house in Qatar next to Osama bin Laden's sons who slaughtered 3,000 Americans? You want to be next to Khalid Mish'al, the main terrorist of Hamas? You want to be a neighbor of Taliban, Al Qaeda? It's not a joke. It's
Yeah.
it's an it's a proactive, provocative movement from him, and I don't think so. The people of Qatar or the American people, our true friends, that we're gonna accept such thing. You know,
Yeah,
when you say
I have
today,
one of your I have your tweet on the screen. I know it might be small, but I'll read it for you. It
yes,
says
please.
here, as the voice of the Qatari opposition, I'm calling out. Many Americans are already questioning. Tucker Carlson went on stage in Doha and openly joked about buying a home there. Doha is a city that hosts Taliban official political presence, house leaders of Hamas, and represents a regime long criticized for shielding forces hostile to freedom. Even if it's framed as humor, joking about living amongst extremists and terror linked power structures are deeply offensive to every family mourning the 3,000 lives lost of 9/11 and to those grieving victims of the October 7th massacre. You cannot preach America first while normalizing life inside a regime that protects the enemies of the free world. This is not about jokes, it's about principles, and Americans deserve consistency for those who claim to speak in their name. Now, it's very interesting to me that if I read that, I would not assume that that was coming from the Qatari opposition even. And I don't mean to sound I don't mean to sound offensive. I think that you being Muslim seem like you have more of a sense of just American standards of being anti the people who enacted 9/11 and enacted October 7th than Tucker Carlson, who claims to be an America First patriot. So expound on that.
I totally agree with you. I totally understand where you're coming from. I totally understand what is this concern means. Let me explain to you something. The Qatari regime is funding a lot of charity fronts. The main idea of these charity fronts is actually to come to the West, buying churches, converting them to mosques, provoking the people that imagine that you are living in a neighborhood and this is your only church in the neighborhood, and someone comes and buy this church and convert it to a mosque.
Mm-hmm.
What will be your reaction? The same thing people from my own country have to understand this. Someone come from America, buys an actual mosque and convert it to a church. You
Yeah,
will not accept that.
I agree.
This sort of yeah,
I agree.
this sort of ideas, this is all comes from the Muslim Brotherhood agenda.
Mm-hmm.
They said we have to dominate, and Qatar basically they are the main financial hub for this terrorist. People don't understand that Al Qaeda came from Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas came from Muslim Brotherhood. Most of the radical Islamists you see now in America came from the Muslim Brotherhood.
Now,
So
what is the relationship between, like, let's say Qatar and the Ayatollah, like the Iranian regime? Because we know that the Iranian regime is the number one state sponsor of terrorism, and we
really,
know the it has been argued. I don't think it's an argument that Qatar funds Hamas, that they house Hamas, that they protect Hamas leaders. How does that whole system come together?
Qatar share with Iran the largest gas field in the world.
Okay.
Iran, because of its sanctions, they cannot do much. They cannot sell much. They cannot bring dollars into the country. So Qatar basically washing money for the Iranian regime. So basically, they agree to have a bigger share, making some cash and send it to Iran or the alliances of Iran. There is a lot of existence of the Iranian corrupt financial system in Qatar. For example, laundering the money surrounding that, changing the documentation of the gas for certain countries, which is around Qatar. So Qatar using other weak regimes to change the document of origin for the Iranian gas to sell it to make some money. So they facilitate it, and they always say Iran is our sister. Iran is the biggest ally to us. It's not because the only financial interest between them is because the Iranian regime, which is I mean, it's not only it's a provocative movement, because what happened, you saw the first airstrike came to Qatar was actually from the Iranian regime.
Hmm.
And it was a shock. They were sitting on a round table. The first man they invited was the president of Iran. They provoked the Qatari people.
Yeah.
You just attacked us a few weeks ago and you came to our table.
The
So,
reason the reason I
yes,
ask and the reason I
yeah,
ask is because I think it's widely accepted in America that Iran is a terrorist regime and the number one state sponsor of terrorists. But I don't know how people are not making the connection where if Qatar is aligned with Iran, then by default they are also sponsors of terrorists, and they align with the Muslim Brotherhood, they align with Iran, they align with our enemies, they chant death to America. And there are so many people. Tucker Carlson. There's several influencers who were just invited to Doha for this influencer trip. You had a gay man who was talking about how he's a free man in Qatar, and I'm gonna get to that, but just hearing somebody, because I think that what we're doing is we're ignoring the connections from, especially from people who love to make connections. So I just wanted to add that.
okay, I agree with you. But let me explain to you something. The the Islamist groups, or let's say the radical Islamist group that Qatar is sponsoring, is not because they just want control. So basically, it's an ideological influence into the main system, which is Tamim, his father, and his brothers, and the family, and part of the royal family. Qatar has an issue. That issue is that they think if Al Jazeera channel promoting Hamas, promoting the Muslim Brotherhood agenda, promoting all of this radical ideologies, they will keep a lot of the Arab people in their side. And by that, they are pretending to the West at the same time, to the American people, we are the mediator. We are the people that can help you negotiate with terrorists. For the only issue that without the existence of the regime of Qatar, there will not be Taliban. There will not be the current regime of Syria. There will not be Hamas. There will not be the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. These regimes, they've been created by the Qatari regime to influence the West.
Correct.
Example, if there is someone being kidnapped by Taliban, for example, they were going to approach the United Kingdom government. They will say to them, we can help you taking them out. You're not helping. You are the one who kidnapped these people and facilitated to show your mediation. And that's exactly what's happening.
Well, one of the things that people also ignore in America, well, not everybody, but I've seen people ignore in America, is on October 7th, they didn't just kill Israelis. They killed Israeli Americans and Americans. They kidnapped Americans. And the Qatari government was housing the Hamas terrorists in Qatar after. And the way I see it is Qatar may be a strategic partner that maybe this administration maybe there's something that can be there can be a benefit to maybe trying to bring them in and trying to give them sort of the Saudi Arabia model. But it should not be ignored that they are not an ally to the United States. I don't think that that should be pushed
Qatar is not an
under the
ally.
current leadership.
Qatar is not an ally to the United States. Qatar promoting to the West. We bought the conservative, we bought Trump, we bought the administration, we own them. Kushner is our boy. We invested money with him, and that's what they promote to the people of Qatar.
Yeah.
So they say we are secure. Look, when the attack of the Israelis happened to us, we just Trump signed the agreement. So all of this nonsense that they're promoting in Qatar, it's just a way to manipulate the people to keep the control there. But at the same time, the United States establishment by President Trump. Look, I personally like President Trump, and I believe that he's a good man. that's been deceived by the current regime of Qatar.
I agree.
They are they come to President Trump. They say, okay, we will promote peace. We will do one. We will cease fire in Gaza, and we will help. And they are just playing with him, buying time. And the same day they hosted the Tucker Carlson and Qatar Forum, Khalid Mish'al, at the same day, he went on another platform, which is sponsored by Qatar as well, and he said, we were not going to drop our weapons. So who to believe?
Well,
If you are
yeah, well, that's the problem. The issue with Trump has always been, I'm a huge Trump supporter, but I think that it's a little easy to play off of his vanity, where if you're a fan of Trump, he's a fan of you, and it's very easy for somebody to manipulate that. Maybe Qatar, offering him a plane, right? With offering him a plane and saying, "Oh, we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that," you have to look at the historical track record of these people and take that into account. And I do believe he does. I think that we're having a split in America, because I want to really focus this interview on the American aspect, where we're having a split between people who support Trump and who are maybe not aware of the threat of these Islamic nations and these terrorist proxies. And then you have the Islamic apologists, like Tucker Carlson, like Nick Fuentes, who doesn't think that Islam is a big problem. I want to focus on where the Qatari influence has already infiltrated America. There's been $200 billion spent in our college institutions. And when you see an attack like October 7th, and then you see all of these college institutions having all of these protests about free Palestine, and then just 2 years later, this all started with the far left, the radical left. 2 years later, you have the far right, who seems to be sort of on board, and they're all coming together to do this. Do you think that the Qatari government purposefully puts money into our institutions to change the political maybe pushback that they would get? Like, do you think that that's an indoctrination tactic?
100%. Qatar lobbying strategy is always based on renting influence. So what they're doing, even the people they buy from the right, they know it's wrong, but they want to benefit short time from the Qatari regime. But I'm not sure why they would do that. They know that the Qatari regime there is to actually destroy the Constitution of the United States of America. They don't love Trump. They
Yes,
don't
no,
like Trump
no, they
at
don't.
all. You have to understand that Qatar historically they've been supporting Democrats for a very, very, very long time,
Hmm.
and they love the ideology of the Democrats.
I,
For
I
them to come,
I
yeah,
think that I'm not sure if it was I think it was a Muslim Brotherhood member who said that they love the left because they're useful idiots. They can use the left. They can use their empathy. They can use their anti Islamophobia, and they can use it against them. They can use their virtue, right, to manipulate them, to support them, because they're so easily influenced. It's harder to I thought it was harder to influence the right, but the way you buy the right is just with money. So where is all this money coming from? They seem like they have an endless supply of money, $200 billion to institutions. God knows how much they put into bot farms, propaganda campaigns, politicians. How is Qatar so wealthy?
Qatar is one of the richest countries in the world. They have gas, they have a lot of resources, they play solely around the world, and they are benefiting from the sanctions on Russia and Iran, and that's why they have big contracts with China and other countries. So Qatar,
Is the poverty rate reflective of that? Do the people Are the people well off, or is it just the leadership?
the people are not very well off. They get good salaries, There is a high GDP in the country, but they give them the minimum, which what they're supposed to get. And our idea in the Qatar National Democratic Party, what we say always, instead of pumping money to Hamas, we should give that money to our own people. We should develop the country. We should support our people. Why would we go and support Hamas with 100 or 200 billion dollar where we can pay that money for the well-being of our people? So that's exactly our idea. So Qatar, what they doing, they are actually putting all their wealth for one reason, for the West to worship Tamim. Have you seen him like a child next to Trump, sitting like this? He's a great man. He's one of the greatest leader in the world, and he become red and happy and like that. Tamim is like this. He is a psychopath, and
Yeah.
that's what he wants. He wants people to worship him, and he will pay millions for that. Imagine during the crisis between Qatar and the GCC countries, this man in one day spent $800 million for his pictures to be around Qatar, on T-shirts, on cups, on stuff like that. This is an absolutely insane. That's why people actually in Qatar, we believe he's an idiot,
Yeah.
because what's happening in Qatar for the past, like for example, few years since he took the power. Imagine 2013 he took the power.
Mm-hmm.
2013, he been accused of financing Muslim Brotherhood. 2014, he had a backlash with all the GCC countries.
Mm-hmm.
2017, another issue. And it's keep going on and on and on and on and on. And he keeps promoting that we are not the problem, the world is the problem. No, you are the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna pull up this these two influencers. They went to Doha and they took pictures in front of this I don't know, like view. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this because if you look here, I don't know if you can see it, but I wrote, you know, a gay conservative man and a right-wing boss babe went to a place where neither of them have rights, and they told their audience how awesome it is. So these pictures here, this is Emily, I think her name's Emily Brown, Emily Saves America. This landscape in the background, they're like, oh, it looks so beautiful, and they have F1 racing. I think that you're already aware of the answer of this. Do you know how all of this was built? This was
Yes.
built with slave labor.
Of course, but this specific picture, I think it's in the West Bay
Mm-hmm.
area, next to Lusail, which is just 1 mile from Hamas leader's house
Mm-hmm.
in Qatar and Osama bin Laden house. So this picture could be taken in a better angle to show where the terrorists live instead of showing how lavish it is. Number
Now
one. Number two,
this man right here, Rob Smith, he's gay. Do gay people have rights in Qatar?
no, they don't have right, and that's the public standing of the Emir of Qatar. He's publicly saying that we are not supporting any LGBT community existence in Qatar.
How
And
was
that's
he?
not my word.
How was he able to go here and take this picture? Was it because the Qatari government would make an exception if the influencers were going to say kind words about Qatar?
I would say what Tamim say. They bottled him with money, and that's it.
Yeah. So if
Of course,
he
they're
was
gonna say
so
whatever they want to say.
if Rob Smith was to try to live in Qatar without the influencer status, would he? How would they deal with a gay man in Qatar? What would they do?
They usually don't accept them. They take them to the military directly. They put them in the military, and they start treating them very badly. They don't have any rights in Qatar.
So they don't kill them, but they would arrest him and force him to.
Historically, yes, they could kill him, but for now, because of the West existence, I don't think they will do it, but they will torture them.
They would torture him and force him into military service.
Yes.
Wow. And you know, these people, they're saying that, oh, Qatar's great. But I'm wondering if it's genuine because they were given the bells and whistles and the tour and the F1 racing, or I hope this is not the answer, or if they know that they're lying and they're just doing it for money. Because the problem I'm seeing in American politics, in the political space of conversation of ideas, is people are not telling you what they actually believe anymore. They're just telling you what's either going to get them money, clicks, likes, or attention. With Tucker Carlson, there's a theory that because when he got fired from Fox, he partnered up with this man Omar, I think it's Omar Malik, who's an Islamist, and he Tucker Carlson changed his beliefs and his opinions about Islam, which used to be very critical, to now he's saying, I'm going to buy a place in Doha. Oh, Sharia law isn't that bad. Do you think that that's probably what's going on? Is these are just paid influencers or paid campaigns?
No, they are paid influencers. It's certainly paid influencers. Without any financial interest for them, they will never stand this standing because
Mm.
they know they will lose the people. They supported them for a long time. So, but they put their financial interest first. So when I saw some Tucker Carlson, he said like, "Oh, I'm an American. I can say whatever I want to say." Of course, you can say
Of
whatever you
course.
want to say, but that's not the point. The point is the radical shift in your opinion in a very short time. It's very obvious that there is another interest for you.
Sure. And what is like, so, these people talk about they're in Doha, right? And I feel like it's a lot like Abu Dhabi, right? Where it's a smoke and mirrors screen of, of Qatar. Where what does the rest of Qatar look like outside Doha? Is it all beautiful and all, this magnificent structure and beautiful landscapes, or is there more of a poverty area surrounding Doha?
No, there is a poverty area. There is people who's not paid salaries for months and months, especially labor, and they living sorry like animals. And the Qatar regime is not doing anything for it. Like I have a lot of footage. Maybe I will send you later to have a look at real Qatar. So for you to see, there is certain areas very well developed, but there is another areas where they keep the labors, where they keep some of the poor Qatari nationals, and is not developed.
Would
And I
it
will
be
show you some pictures. You will be shocked.
would it be accurate to say that they have a form of slavery in Qatar?
They do have definitely
Yeah.
100%. I mean, if you don't own your opinion, you are a slave.
Yeah.
So literally, if you go criticize, you have two options: to leave the country or to be in prison, and
Hmm.
you have to choose. And basically, both choices is not
And
good
what
for
about
anyone.
what about labor camps? Do they have labor camps where they built all that beautiful scenery? Do they take people who like let's say Rob Smith, gay man. Let's say they put him in to service. Would they use their own citizens, not pay them, and use them for labor to build their infrastructure?
Yes, and that's a story that has been there for a very long time. There is a lot of people that's not been paid for many of their work, a lot of contractors, a lot of laborers, a lot of companies, and the Qatari government always bullshitting, creating story of the 90 days payment, and they never pay people, and they are actually struggling. And if you go criticize, you have no options. I mean, I heard the story once about one Nepali guy that he'd been thrown actually from one building because he was asking for his right.
Wow. And that leads me to one of my questions. You are currently in exile. Is that why you're in exile? You're in the UK, correct?
I am in the UK now,
So
yes.
if you were to try to go to Qatar and, in America, you know how we do it. We go and knock on doors and we run ads on TV. If you were to go do that, you would be arrested, correct?
Yes, definitely. So 2013, no, so 2010, I made a statement to the newspaper in Qatar about 6,200 companies going to be bankrupt. And the same day, the Prime Minister of Qatar was very angry. And in that time, Hamad bin Khalifa was the Emir of Qatar. And the secret intelligence of Qatar, they took me and they was questioning me for 20 days. I mean, that was a shock for me. It was crazy. Like, I mean, I will show you the article they published in the newspaper and my disappearance for around 20 days because I've said something true. And I've tried to change within the country, but unfortunately, every single time I say something, they come after me in a very bad way. So I've
Mm,
decided to stop criticizing within the country.
mm.
And then when they start to accuse me basically of trying to change the regime while I was just an economist, I was not a politician. And then I had to run for my life.
Yeah. So did you escape, or were you able to get out, relatively unscathed?
On 14th of April, if 14th of March, 2013, if I am not wrong, um, Tamim bin Hamad called me, gave me a call, the Emir of Qatar. He told me you can come back to Doha, everything will be fine. We will gonna sort it out. When I came back to Doha, I've been from the airport to the diplomatic area to the intelligence office. And I was questioned and I was actually kidnapped for a long time. And then, because I have some strong relationship in Qatar as well and influence, I managed to run the country without they are noticing. So basically, I've run from the Doha, and I've made one phone call to the Qatari intelligence head of intelligence in that time, which was named Ghanem Al Kubaisi. I told him I will come to your house to sort it out while I'm planning the escape because I don't want them to be alerted that I'm leaving the country.
Hmm.
So basically, that's what happened. And when I run from the country, I called him from, I remember from Egypt in that time, and he was in shock that I left the country.
Well, that was smart because you never know when they're gonna just say, "Okay, he's too problematic." I'm gonna give you a tough question, right? Because this is something that I am very outspoken against. What's your position on Sharia law?
Okay, Sharia law. So let me explain to you. Islam is a spiritual belief. It's not a political belief. So, for example, when you come and speak about a policy could be changed, could be negotiated, could
Hmm.
be debated, but the
Democratically, yeah.
democratically, yes. So that's what's called the principle of the policy. But in Sharia law is a spiritual belief that should not be controlling the way people live in. So it's only control the way you are actually worshiping God. And
Yep.
that's the main idea and the difference between Islamists and the normal Muslims.
I agree completely. And the thing is, I think that Sharia, some of the interpretations of Sharia, have just like an oil and water contrast to any democratic system. Because in Islam, some Sharia practicing Muslims will say that you put the Brotherhood over any country, any nation, any policy, where that means if they go to any other nation that already has a democratic process in place, like you said earlier, what they want to do is they want to change it. So if what you're talking about is actually the inverse, where you want to create a democratic system in an Islamic nation, and I think that that's a heavy lift. So,
First, the first principle of Islam is basically respect your leader.
mhm.
If your leader is Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, or whatever he should be, and that's what you should respect and follow. The only problem with the groups you are referring to who doesn't believe in actually look, if I'm American, I have to respect the United States of America law.
I agree.
So my president will be President Trump. My president will not be the Muslim Brotherhood preacher. What's happening here, the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, is basically saying you should not obey your king or prince, even in the Islamic countries. For example, now the problems the GCC countries facing, even president of United States or sorry, president of UAE or the Emir of Kuwait, they're saying you don't follow those. You have to follow the main preacher, which is the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. And here is the ideology we are fighting because when they come to you, they did worst in our countries. That's why we call them a terrorist.
Yeah.
And you are still debating if they are terrorists. We are Arabs. We know them better than you. We know the language,
Yeah,
and that we know this explanation. So you said, "Oh, it's a democracy. They can say what they want to say." No, they can't,
yeah.
because it's wrong.
And you have the son of the leader of Hamas who comes out and speaks against this ideology. It's very indoctrinating. It's very brainwashing. Where they like, and I do believe that there is a difference between a Muslim and an Islamist. But I also believe that there are too many Islamists. So we have to figure out a way to get the peaceful Muslims, of which there is a vast majority. I was just talking about this with Tommy Robinson, and he says that they're irrelevant because they don't speak out enough against Islamists. It appears that you do. So I would say that you're doing the right thing, but too many people aren't. So creating a
You want
Qatar,
to solve the problem. You
yeah,
want to solve the issue.
and I want to
Fine,
coexist. I want to coexist with
fine.
Muslims. I want to coexist with everybody. But I
Simple,
but
simple.
we cannot coexist with Islamists. It's not going to happen.
I give you the solution. The only solution is to criminalize the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. Simple.
Perfect.
Period.
Yeah, we just
That's
did
what
that
will solve the whole problem.
we just did that in Texas where I live. I'm wearing a Bucky's shirt. I'm in Texas, and my governor does a great job at this. But I think that it needs to come. It needs to be implemented where it is. It needs to be implemented in Muslim nations where you'd have to call out the extremists in your own ideology, in your own religion, in your own area. So if it was something you mentioned about the Qatari constitution. I just heard this term, so forgive me if I'm messing this up. What is the Wahhabi in the Qatar constitution? There's a Wahhabi practice that's a against a guy. Could you?
Okay, so let me explain to you. Okay, so the Wahhabism is not an actual, it's not an actual
Islamic?
uh, uh, belief. For example, it's a movement.
Okay.
So the people say, oh, it's Wahhabism or Shia or Sunnah or all that sort of, you guys. But Wahhabism is an absolute. It's nothing. It's just a movement. It's not something that people following actually. But because people don't understand the Arabic language, they start creating things. And for example, in um, uh, in uh, Oman, for example, they are Ibadist, and in Saudi they call them Wahhabism because Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. In Qatar, they follow the same thing because the Al Thanis came actually from Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
So that's the terms of it. But when you come and talk about the Sharia law, which you was mentioning to me, the problem is people don't understand that we've been fighting what you are now fighting for a very long time. The UAE designating them as as a terrorist organization. Egypt did, Jordan did, Saudis did, most of the country did, except one country, Qatar. Now they are trying to convince Trump that they are not terrorists, and this is the problem we are facing now.
Yeah. Yeah. What about so Iran and Qatar both I don't believe have designated them as terrorists. There are 56 Muslim nations. I'm not sure how many of them are designated, but I agree with you wholeheartedly. The best way to solve this is to take the Saudi Arabia example and become more of a anti-Islamist Muslim practicing nation as opposed to an Islamist nation, which I think Qatar is. Now, the Abraham Accords that Trump started in his first term, I think that what he's trying to do, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do this, I think what he's trying to do is bring Qatar into that, like he's trying to do with any other Islamic nation, and create a peaceful structure in the Middle East by bringing in more partners so it's mutually beneficial. Do you think that that's possible?
If we are in power, yes, but with the
With the current
existence of the
leadership, no.
Qatar, no, no, no. They have a fundamental issue with that. And even if they will do it forcefully, they will play against it to destroy it, and that's what
Okay.
they will do.
So even if they were to come on board tomorrow and say we're going to join the Abraham Accords, you think that they would undermine it and they would only do it out of being forced, but they would be trying to figure out a way get out of it.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so the only solution from you, I would say, is that a regime change, and a lot of people in America are fundamentally opposed to any regime change in any Islamic country because of how many times they have failed in the past. And there's an anti-interventionist movement in the United States where they basically, a lot of people on the right are saying, get the hell out of these countries, stop interfering, let them govern themselves. I have a different. See, Charlie Kirk, who was just recently assassinated, he had this amazing quote right before he died, and he said that there's a false binary between interventionists and non-interventionists, and there's a third one that people aren't talking about, which is what Trump does, and that's peace through strength. You negotiate when it's necessary, as long as it's beneficial to the United States. I think having a peaceful Middle East is beneficial to the United States. So, would you say that the only solution for Qatar, if they wanted to coexist with the United States and be a true ally instead of an ally in name only, would be a regime change?
100%, and that's what we are working on now. We have no other options. We started as a reformist, and now we have no other options than to work on changing the regime of Qatar. And that's why we are now started to lobby in the United States of America to explain what is our agenda and what we want to do. Because as you understand, they have strong allies there in the United States as well, and that we have to convince that nothing will gonna change. If you fear that the new faces will gonna make some differences in the certain agreements, that will not happen. We will
Okay,
be there
so
for you. We will
that
be better allies to you as well.
yeah, that actually brings me to my final question. We've been going for an hour. I appreciate your time so much. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna switch over to our Rumble only. We usually do an hour for free on all the platforms. And my final question to you is going to be, what does Qatar